Now we will see the next two Vedangas, namely Nirukta and Chandas. We will start with Nirukta. Before we understand Nirukta, it's important for us to know why we should be aware of Nirukta. So let me take an example and show it to you as to what is happening. Here is a mantra from Tandiya Brahmana. What does it say? I will quickly read the mantra. Yavadvai sahasram gava uttaradara ityahuhu tavat asmat lokat swargo lokayiti tasmad ahuhu sahasraya jiva iman lokan prapnoti. This is one mantra that you find in Tandiya Brahmana. And one Dutch philosopher, Calland, actually translated it. Let us see how he has translated. The world of heaven is as far removed from this earthly world, they say, as 1,000 cows standing one above the other. The emphasis I have added because that's what I wanted to discuss. Therefore, they say, he who sacrifices with a sacrifice at which 1,000 dakshinas are given reaches these worlds. Now, the important part to note here is that he is saying 1,000 cows standing one above the other, and that is how the world of heaven is moved from our world. I mean, anybody will laugh at this translation and say, what is all this? How can you stack 1,000 cows one over the other and say that is the difference between the earth and the heaven? I mean, this is the height of nonsense that one may think. Truly, because nobody, good mind would have never uttered anything like this. This is precisely why you need something called Nirukta. Look at here, what is the issue here? In normal usage, go means cow. So that's what that translator has used. Sahasra Gavaha is 1,000 cows. But in Nirukta, if you look at, there are 21 synonyms listed in a group in Nirukta, which are all sort of equivalents. Go is part of it. So Gauhu, Gma, Jma, Kshma, Ksha, Kshama, Kshonihi, Kshitihi, Avanihi, Urvi, Prithvi, Mahi, Ripaha, Aditihi, Niruritihi, Bhuhu, Bhumihi, Pusha, Gatuhu, Gotra. These are all synonyms. So what does it mean? In this particular mantra, the meaning of Gau must relate to the earth and not to the cow. If you replace it with the earth, then it is a sensible thing. The distance is something like 1,000 times or 100 times the diameter of the earth. That is a sensible kind of a meaning. So therefore, unless we know these synonyms, we will actually end up with wrong translations, wrong understanding. That's why Nirukta is required. Now, what is this Nirukta? Nirukta is basically the thesaurus or the set of synonyms for this is actually called Nigantu. Nirukta is nothing but organizing the Nigantu into certain portions. So we have here, as you see here, there are 3 kandas here. There is a Naigantuka kanda, which has 3 adhyayas, 3 chapters. In the first chapter, you have 17 groups of synonyms consisting of 415 words. In the second chapter, you have 22 groups of synonyms, which has 516 words. In the third chapter, you have 30 groups of synonyms, which have 410 words. Then you have the second one called Naigama Kanda, in which there are 278 words with multiple meanings organized into 3 groups. And then there is a Daivata Kanda, in which there are 151 words which has names of Devatas in 3 groups. So unless we know all these equivalences, unless we know all these synonyms, how are we going to actually make sense of the Vedic mantras? So Nigantu has a collection of rarely used words. You can imagine something like that, and it can be in a way equated to a thesaurus where synonyms of various genres are collated. That's what we understand it to be. As I told you, Yaskar wrote Nirukta in the 5th century BCE. It is actually a commentary on Nigantu. We will now move on to the next Vedanga, which is Chandas. Now, as I told you, the Samhita portion of the Vedas are almost entirely in prosody. Therefore, the study of the meters to which they are set is very important. Only then we know whether we are pronouncing it correctly or there are some varnas, syllables missing. If something is in Anushtup Chandas, then we know that there are a certain number of syllables which make each quarter. Therefore, we need to know it. Only then we will know, have we missed something, have we added something extra. So, these are checks and balances of the Vedic mantra. So, Chandas is actually the meter of a poetic composition. In the Vedic corpus, there are 7 main meters used, and majority of these meters, majority of them have 4 quarters in them, which means a meter will have 4 padas, and in each pada there are a certain number of syllables. That's how a meter is made, and some meters have only 3 padas. So, any addition or removal of even a single syllable from a mantra will suddenly become evident at once, because the rhythm of the mantra will be lost. That's why we need to know the Chandas. Chandas helps us in preserving intact not only the Vedic text but also any literature set in prosody. So, the same rule applies even in Kalidasa's Sakuntala also will have the same rule. If it is set to a particular meter, suddenly the meter goes offhand, that means either there is an addition or a deletion. So, this is a very generic idea actually. And the hierarchical structure of a meter is something which we need to understand. What you see here is the hierarchical structure. Essentially, a meter is there, and it is made of padas. A meter has a certain number of padas. As I told you, it can be 3 or 4. Most of them are 4, some of them can be 3. And in each pada there will be a certain number of syllables. We will take an example to actually understand this. You see here there is this mantra. Swadishtaya Madishtaya Pavasva Soma Dharaya Indraya Patave Sutaha. This is a mantra from I think 8th or 9th mandala of Rigveda. So, this is set to Gayatri meter. Now, we have to understand what is this Gayatri meter. Gayatri meter will have 3 padas as indicated here. Here the pada 1 is Swadishtaya Madishtaya, that is the first pada. Pavasva Soma Dharaya, that is the second one. Indraya Patave Sutaha, that is the third one. So, now a meter has been broken into 3 padas. Now, each pada will have 8 syllables. That is the definition of a Gayatri meter. So, you have 3 padas, each pada having 8 syllables. Therefore, you have 24 syllables which make actually a Gayatri meter. So, that is how a Gayatri meter is understood actually. So, here are the syllables: Swa, Di, Shta, Ya, Ma, Di, Shta, Ya. If you count, I have colored it differently just to indicate that there will be exactly 8. Similarly, Pa, Va, Swa, So, Ma, Dha, Ra, Ya. There are 8 of them. Indra, Ya, Pa, Ta, Ve, Su, Taha. This is again 8. So, this is how these meters are made, and one needs to really understand it. Otherwise, we may not really know what is really happening. Now, here is a table that you find details pertaining to the Vedic meters. As I was trying to explain, there are actually 7 of them, as you see here. I have numbered it now. You see here, Gayatri, Ushnik, Anushtup, Brihati, Pankti, Trishtup, Jakati. And in this column you find how many padas make it. As you see, Gayatri and Ushnik alone has 3 padas, Pankti has 5 padas, all of those have 4 padas. And this says Gayatri is 3 into 8, 24. Brihati, for example, has a very weird combination, 3, 8 and 1, 12. So it becomes 36. If you take Trishtup, this is 11 syllables into 4, making it 44. Anyway, so this is how these different meters are made. Unless we know this structure, unless we know what meter a mantra is set, what number of padas and syllables in each pada, unless we know it, we may not even know whether we have interpolated something, removed something and so on. That is the role this particular Vedanga brings us to understand Vedas. But little later we will also see that in the process of developing the Chanda Shastra, which Pingala did in 200 BCE, We also found some rudimentary but wonderful foundations of binary mathematics also there, which we will see in some other video in another chapter. That's related to this Chandas Shastra. Since we are talking about Vedanga, I stop here, but the mathematical part of it and the number part of it we will see later when we deal such issues in the another chapter.